The wallet was sitting right there on the wet pavement, half tucked beneath the rear tire of a black SUV that had just pulled away from the curb on Fifth Avenue. Claire Donnelly almost missed it. She had been walking fast, head down against the October wind, one hand gripping the strap of her canvas bag, and the other holding a brown paper bag that smelled faintly of the roasted chicken she had bought on sale at the corner market, dinner for herself and her 7-year-old son, Theo. She wasn't looking for anything other than a way to get home before the cold got worse, but something made her glance down, and there it was, a slim, dark leather bifold lying open on the ground like a discarded book, its edges already dampened by the thin film of rain that had been falling since noon. Claire stopped. She looked around. The black SUV was already a block away, absorbed into the sluggish stream of Manhattan traffic. The sidewalk was crowded. Office workers, a delivery guy on a bike, 2 teenagers with earbuds in. But nobody seemed to have noticed what had fallen. Nobody was looking back. Nobody was stopping. She picked it up. The leather was smooth and warm in a way that surprised her, as if it had been held by a careful hand just moments before. The inside was neat. No receipts, no crumpled cards, no chaos. Just a stack of $100 bills. She counted 5 before she stopped herself. A single black credit card with the name Richard Caldwell embossed in silver, and a small white card tucked behind it. No driver's license, no photos, no clutter. The white card had a phone number and nothing else, not even a name. Claire stood in the middle of the sidewalk while people moved around her like water around a stone. $500 in cash, probably more on the credit card than she would earn in a year at her current pace. She thought of the electric bill she had pushed to the back of the kitchen drawer. She thought of Theo's winter coat, the one with the broken zipper she had been meaning to replace since March. She thought of the notice from the landlord last Tuesday. Polite language, firm meaning. Then she tucked the wallet into her canvas bag, tightened her grip on the roasted chicken, and kept walking toward the subway. Claire Donnelly was 34 years old, and she had not planned any part of her life the way it had turned out. Not the marriage to Danny, which had felt like rescue at 22 and had collapsed quietly by the time she was 28. Not the pregnancy, which had surprised them both and had ultimately survived the collapse of everything else. Not the tiny apartment in Washington Heights with the radiator that knocked every night like someone impatient at the door. Not the job doing bookkeeping for a small dental practice on the Upper West Side, 3 days a week. Enough to keep the lights on if she was careful, not enough to breathe. What she had planned, or at least dreamed, was different. A degree in accounting that she'd finished at night school the year after Theo was born, studying at the kitchen table while he slept in the next room. A path forward. A version of herself that wasn't always 2 weeks from the edge. She was working on it. That was what she told herself every morning while she made Theo's lunch and checked the weather, and mentally calculated whether she could afford the good orange juice or the cheap kind. She was working on it. It was just taking longer than expected. At home that night after dinner, after Theo had shown her a drawing he'd made at school, a dog with 7 legs, which he explained was because 7 was his favorite number, and after she had read him 2 chapters of his book and turned off his light, Claire sat at the kitchen table and opened the wallet again. She spread out the contents on the table. The $500 bills. The black credit card. The small white card with the number. She opened her laptop and typed Richard Caldwell, New York, into the search bar. The results came back immediately, and for a moment she just stared at the screen. Richard Caldwell was not a man who lost things carelessly, according to every article that appeared. He was 41, the founder and CEO of Caldwell Capital Partners, one of the most prominent private equity firms in the country. His name appeared on the boards of 2 hospitals, a performing arts foundation, and a university endowment committee. There were photographs of him at charity galas, shaking hands with senators, speaking at a podium in front of a crowd of people in expensive suits. He was tall, with dark hair going silver at the temples, and a way of looking at the camera that suggested he was used to being looked at without necessarily enjoying it. His net worth, according to the most recent estimate she found, was somewhere north of $3 billion. Claire stared at the $500 on her kitchen table. Then she looked at the small white card. She thought about not calling. She thought about it seriously, the way you think seriously about something you already know you won't do. The money would help. The money would help enormously. But it wasn't hers. And she had known that from the moment she picked the wallet up off the wet pavement. She had known it even while she was thinking about the electric bill and Theo's coat and the landlord's letter. Knowing it hadn't stopped her from thinking about it, but it had stopped her from doing anything else. She picked up her phone and dialed the number on the white card. It rang 4 times. She was preparing herself for voicemail when someone answered. Yes. A man's voice, direct, not unfriendly, but not warm either. The voice of someone accustomed to calls that had a point. Hi, Claire said. I'm sorry to call so late. My name is Claire Donnelly. I found a wallet on 5th Avenue this afternoon, around 52nd Street. The credit card inside has the name Richard Caldwell. That's me. A pause, brief but noticeable, like a recalculation. Where are you? Washington Heights. I have the wallet. Everything's still in it. Another pause, longer this time. Everything, he repeated. It was not quite a question. Everything, she said. The silence that followed lasted only a few seconds, but it had a quality to it that she couldn't quite read. Not suspicion exactly. Something more like surprise, careful and unannounced. Can I send someone to pick it up tomorrow morning? He asked. Of course, Claire said, or I can drop it somewhere, whatever's easier. I'll send someone to you. What's your address? She gave it to him. He read it back correctly, which for some reason she noticed. They agreed on 10 o'clock. He thanked her. 2 words, clean and direct. And the call ended. Claire sat for a moment with the phone in her hand, looking at the wallet on the table. She put the bills and the card back in their places, closed the leather fold, and set it beside her laptop. She told herself that was the end of it. Someone would come tomorrow, pick up the wallet, and that would be that. A small, unremarkable story she might tell Theo someday. A lesson in doing the right thing, even when it cost you something. She turned off the kitchen light and went to bed. She did not expect, when she opened her door at 10 o'clock the next morning, to find Richard Caldwell standing in the hallway himself. He was taller in person than the photograph suggested. That was the first thing Claire noticed. The second was that he was alone. No assistant trailing behind him, no driver waiting visibly in the hall, no entourage of any kind. Just a man in a dark wool coat standing in the narrow corridor outside her apartment door, holding a small arrangement of white flowers wrapped in brown paper that looked like it had been bought from a real florist. Not a hotel lobby. Claire had answered the door expecting a courier. She was wearing her good jeans and a grey sweater she considered presentable, which was fortunate. She was not wearing the expression she'd planned. Composed, casual, the face of someone entirely unbothered by returning a billionaire's wallet. Instead, she stood in the doorway for a moment, with her hand still on the knob, recalibrating. Mr. Caldwell, she said. Miss Donnelly. He held out the flowers with a directness that somehow made the gesture less awkward than it could have been. I wanted to bring these myself. I hope that's not an intrusion. It's not, she said, which was true. Come in. He stepped inside and took in the apartment, the way people did when they were trying not to appear to be doing so. A quick sweep, respectful, not evaluating. The space was small but clean. Claire had made sure of that. There were crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator, and a pair of small sneakers by the door, and a half-finished puzzle on the coffee table that Theo had been working on for 2 weeks. It was a map of the world. He'd completed Europe and was making slow, determined progress through Asia. Tea? Claire offered, because it seemed right.